Hello everyone. Today I'll be showing you how to make a car just like this. Completely drivable. You can actually steer it with the steering wheel. Um, and it has acceleration speed, max speed. It has everything that you can imagine in a rec room car. So I'm gonna stop the talking. Let's get straight into the tutorial. Before we get started, you guys can skip this part if you want, but I'm just going to show you what you should have by the end of this tutorial if you follow it step by step. So I'm going to be driving this thing. As you can see right here, we have the car. You can sit down and you have the trigger handle. This is what's actually going to rotate the car. And when you hold the trigger, it goes forward just like this. And if you have enough speed, you can actually start to drift. As you can see, doing a bit of drifting over here, and we can go over to the other side, give it another drift, and a 360, and a stop. So this is what you should have by the end of this tutorial. Okay, so let's actually start to make the car work. So what you're going to need is a car model to start off. So the best way to get that is by a person called Odin. This is his @name, Odin001. He's a very good builder, car guy. So the invention that I used from him is, I believe, yeah, it was this one. This is the one that I got. Very nice car, pretty low-end for a car like this one. I love it. But you can use any of his cars. You can use a Lamborghini, Mustang. But the Lamborghini, if you spawn too many of them, the game's going to start to lag because of the amount of ink it's using. So I'd recommend using something that is below 10 ink. Or if you want, you can just make your own car. But yeah, again, the cars are not made by me. They're made by Odin. So please go and show him some support. Okay, so once you've chosen the car that you want, what you want to do next is spawn it in. I'm going to use the same one that I used at the start of this video. And once it's spawned in, we need to actually start to split, if it's not done already, we have to split the steering wheel from the vehicle. So you can just skip this part if you already know what to do. But for those who don't, what you need to do is you want to go to your make pen, press on edit, and then edit the car. And then what you're going to do is press select and select all the parts that are connected to the steering wheel. So the actual handle, these three bars, this part and this part. But the back part we're not actually going to select because that's the actual pole that's holding the steering wheel. So I'm going to leave that there. And once you've selected the steering wheel, you're going to press on options and split shapes. So now, as you can see, we have the steering wheel separate from the car. Okay, so what we need now is make sure that you've split the steering wheel. After that step, what we need to do now is we need to have an object, a makepen object, that's going to act as the car. So we can't actually make the car physical, otherwise that's going to take a lot of performance on whatever device you're using, especially on Quest 2 and PSVR, because for some of you that might know that if you make a lot of tubes like this, especially a car physical, it's going to take up a lot of performance. So we need some sort of makepen object that's going to act as a car, and the best way, well, the way that I use is by using a cube. So grab a cube, and I like to place my cubes for the cars like pretty much in the middle. You don't have to center the pivot, it's not really important, but I'm going to do that because why not? But what you do want to make sure though is you want to make sure that this green arrow is facing up, because that's gonna help with the car not tipping over, and I'll explain that later. But once you do have the cube, just pretty much make sure that it's centered. You don't have to make sure that it's rotated the same way as the car. So it can be wonky like this. The car's facing that way and the cube's just facing somewhere else. It's fine. It's not going to change anything. As long as, oh my god, yeah, there we go. As long as this green arrow is facing up, then it's all good. But what you do need to do is make sure that this is in the center. So go up from here, get a top view, turn off grid, and just place it pretty much in the center. An easy way to do that is by going in here and seeing where the center is. The center is pretty much around this place. Once you've done that, just scale it down. And that's it for the cube. So far what you should have done is you should have a separate steering wheel. Also, it doesn't have to be the same car steering wheel. You can also grab any invention that can act as a steering wheel. So yeah, just keep that in mind. But make sure that you do have a separate steering wheel. Also make sure that you have a small little cube in the center of the car, and make sure that that cube is facing up. So if I just select it, make sure that this green, oh, can't really see it. Make sure that this green arrow is facing up. All right, so once you've done all of that and now you're ready to move on to the next step, it's time to start wiring things up. So I actually made an invention of the whole of all of the gadgets, so we don't make this tutorial too long. It is right here in this link button. It's called Car Circuits Working, because it's clearly gonna work. But yeah, this is my @name if you guys wanna have a look, and this is the name of the invention. So yeah, just make sure that you grab this before we move on. Otherwise, you're not gonna be able to do this car invention. Okay, so I just spawned it in. It's gonna look like this as soon as you start spawning it in. It's gonna have the default settings for the car already, the same car as this one, the drifting car. Max speed set to 20 and the turn speed and everything like that. Everything's all set up for you. All you have to do is do the wiring and the tag of the car. So let's start from the top and work our way to the bottom. So the first execution is called update 30 Hertz. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's basically a tick that happens every frame, or an execution that happens every frame of your device. So we're going to need that. And the way to get that is go over to your palette and just search up event receiver. There it is. I'm going to turn on surface for this, and just place it right next to that circuit board. Then you want to configure this event receiver that you just spawned. Go to chip settings, event, make sure that it's set to update 30 Hertz, which is at the very bottom. Once you've done that, you want to just go ahead and wire the execution to the update 30 Hertz. You can already hear that there's a bug. So if that's going to be annoying to you, you can just unwire it and we're going to wire it back later. So I'm just going to keep it unwired for now. But just make sure that you have that before we move on. If you do have that, the next thing that, these three we're not going to need, because these are just things that you can change manually without having to wire anything. So we're going to leave these three floats, the max speed, turn speed, and acceleration speed, all for the car modifications. But what we are going to need is the car rotator, wheel rotator, and the wheel center rotator, and also the wheel trigger handle, but that's for later. So let's start with the car rotator first. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's a rotator that's going to rotate the car. So just go ahead, go over to your palette and search up rotator. Grab a CV2 rotator, make sure that's CV2, and just spawn it in, pretty much right on top of the car. Now for the rotator, you need to make sure that it's facing the same direction as the car, otherwise it's going to be pretty buggy. So just go ahead and rotate it until you think it's roughly the same direction. You can also just turn off world space on your Maker Pen to get a better look at it. I think mine's already perfect. Make sure that's also in the center, just the exact same as the cube. If you want to make sure that it is in the same position as the cube, just go ahead and move it down. Move it right on top of the cube, just like this, and then you can just move it back above the car. If that was all too fast for you, slow down the video, go back, make sure that you've done this. Okay, so now that we have this, let's go ahead and grab the circuit board for this rotator so we don't get mixed up. And I'm just going to go ahead and name this one the car rotator, just the same as the circuit board. And make sure that it's going to be detached from the Rec Room object, so that whenever the rotator rotates, it's going to stay in place. Now, using your wire tool from your Maker Pen, just wire up this rotator outputs to the car rotator on the circuit board. Then what you want to do is you need to actually wire up the rotator to the cube so that it actually stays all intact. So what you have to do is make sure that you wire this gray ring. Make sure that you select that and then go down to wherever your cube is and just wire it over to the cube. Just like this. Make sure that's not wired to the car. So if I just move the car, yep, it's wired to the cube and not the car. Okay, now before we move on to the wheel rotator, let's have a look at these two executions outputs over here. So we have the car rotator play and car rotator stop. It is pretty self-explanatory. With your wire tool, just grab the car rotator play to the play on the actual circuit board of the rotator, and the car rotator stop to the stop. Alright, so now we can actually move on to the wheel rotator. So what you want to do is you want to grab a rotator just like last time and make sure that this one is facing up. So circuit board should be facing out like that, based on the car's direction, and the ring should be facing up. Once you have that, then what you want to do is you want to make sure that you line it up with the actual wheel. So this is going to be a bit tedious to work with, but I recommend you using the transform tool because you're going to be rotating and moving at the same time. So just use that. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that this rotator is exactly in the center. Well, not exactly, just roughly in the center of this steering wheel. So just like this, rotate it up a bit and get from the side to get a better view. Rotate a bit more. There we go. That's roughly what it, oh, I moved the car in accident. But yeah, this is roughly what it should look like. So this yellow pole is in the center of the wheel and the ring is just basically covering it. Once you've done that, just go ahead and wire the steering wheel, the separate one, the one that you split. Just make sure that you wire that to the yellow rod on the rotator. Then once you've done that, just go ahead and grab the circuit board just like we've done with the car rotator. I'm going to place it up here, just move it a bit up. And I'm going to go ahead and name it the wheel rotator. Detach it from Rec Room object as well. There we go. Now that we have this, go over to tools, grab your wire tool and just wire it over to the wheel rotator. Now we have another rotator input right under it. It's called the wheel center rotator. And what this basically is, it's just the center of the wheel. You're going to need that for the wheel to actually detect where the trigger handle is on the wheel. So it's really simple. Just clone the wheel that you, clone the rotator that you already have. Clone it and just scale it down a bit so you can tell the difference. Just like that. And then make sure that you also grab its circuit board. So as you can see here, that they were both in each other. So just make sure that you differentiate between them. So this one goes to the top one, this one right here. So I'm going to name that one wheel center rotator. Make sure that it's detached and just like that. And again, just like the other two, wire the rotator output to the wheel center rotator. And now here comes the easiest part about the wiring, the trigger handle tags or inputs, whatever you want to call them. So pretty self-explanatory. Just go over to your palette and type in trigger. You should just see the trigger handle pop up. First one. Just spawn that in, and wire the trigger handle output, this yellow output right here, to the wheel trigger handle on the circuit board, and the is held to primary action is held on the trigger handle. And again, I'm going to move this over here, and I'm also going to detach it from Rec Room objects so it doesn't move around. And now moving on to the last tag, we have the car tag. Now remember what I said earlier about that one makepin object that you're going to have that's going to basically act as the car. This is exactly what this is. We just need to add a tag to it of whatever tag we're going to have. So I'm just going to delete this one. This was the original tag of this car. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to this cube that we had, and I'm going to configure it using my configure tool, and I'm going to go down until I find tags. You can keep the makeup and object tag, it doesn't really matter, but I like deleting it to keep things nice and organized. And I'm just going to name this car just car. It can really be anything. It can be numbers, it can be one letter. As long as you just know the tag, it's all good. But once you have tagged it, make sure that you put that same tag in this car tag on the circuit board. So we did car, so I'm just going to type in car again, and it should be just like that. Now we're not actually done, even though we did do all the wiring on the circuit board, but we still haven't done anything on the actual car itself. So the things that we're going to need are seats, collisions, and wiring up the wheel rotator to the actual body of the car. So what you want to do is go over to your palette, and type in animation. I like to spawn that right next to the wheel, so I know where it's at. And now what you want to do is just go ahead and wire the tip of the animation gizmo, this little hook, to the trigger handle. Make sure that says object added to animation and not removed. If it says removed, just wire it again. Then what you want to do is, this part is going to be pretty hard and confusing, but just stay with me here. What you want to do is you want to wire this, not the center wheel rotator, the outer one. You want to wire that over to the rod of the center wheel. So basically go inside of this rod over here, and you're going to see the small one. Don't know if you guys can see that on screen, but I'm going to, actually let me just do it another way. So I'm going to move this up like this. So now you can see that this is the wheel center rotator and this is the outer one. What you want to do is you want to wire the outer rotator ring to the rod of the wheel center. Sorry if that was a bit confusing, but that's what you need to do. And I'm just going to move them back in place. Make sure that the wheel center rotator is exactly in the center. Otherwise it's going to mess up with, it's really going to mess up with your rotations of the wheel. But once you've done that, what you can do next is just go ahead and wire this outer ring of the center rotator to the animation gizmo. Then what you want to do is you want to move this trigger handle that we had earlier, that we wired to the animation gizmo, and you want to move it over to the top of the wheel. So the way to do that is, because we've already wired it, instead of moving it outside of the animation gizmo, we want to hit edit using the edit button. Hit edit on the animation gizmo, and then just go ahead and grab this trigger handle. Doesn't matter what rotation it's at, as long as it's pretty much on top of the wheel, just like this. We should be good. And then just go ahead and press down. But you can see that it just fell. So press on your configure tool. Make sure that this red pin on the animation gizmo is set to 1. And there you go. Trigger handle should be right there. So now that it's there, we're just going to go ahead and hit the scale tool and scale it down a bit to a reasonable size, just like this. Okay, so now if we just go ahead and try moving this cube, which is basically the center of everything, if we just go ahead and try and move it, you can see that nothing actually moves with it, just that rotator over there. So we still have to do a bit more wiring. This is really just the last one. It's just the seat after this, but what you want to do is you want to wire the car model, just the model, not the steering wheel. You want to wire that to the rod or this pole of the car rotator. The car rotator. And just like that, if we just go ahead and move the cube, we have the car model, but again, we don't have the steering wheel yet. So undo, and the exact same thing that we did with the car model, you want to do with the animation gizmo. Just grab the animation gizmo from the body and wire it to the rod of the car rotator. And just like that. Oh, I think I did something wrong there. Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and select this cube again. Now if I move everything, you can see that everything moves with it. And yeah, just make sure that you've done all of this up until now, because the next steps are going to be crucial to the car actually work. Okay, so we've done the wiring, we've done the rotating stuff, we've done all of that stuff. Now what we need to do is the collisions, because if we make this cube physical, it's just going to fall straight into the ground. It's not actually, the tires aren't going to actually stay on the ground. So what you want to do is you want to go over to palettes and search up invisible and just grab the invisible collision and just place it pretty much anywhere, but make sure that it's surrounding the car. So not necessarily the tires, just the car in general. So you can just manipulate it like this. Just make sure that it fills up like pretty much the entire of the car space. And what I also like to do, because sometimes the car tips over when drifting, what you want to do is maybe just increase the sides a bit, make them a bit larger, so the car has less of a chance of tipping over. Maybe even the back, but it rarely happens at the back. And what you want to do next, just for extra colliders, this is optional. What you want to do is just clone it again and fill the front part of the car. Make sure that it reaches the top. So really just like the top of the car. That's really all you have to do. Manipulate it from the sides. And once you've got that, you can just go ahead and clone it over to the back. And just like that, we have the collisions for this car. And now we're going to have to do a bit of wiring again. Just select these collisions that we just cloned and press on wire. And then just wire one of them, as long as you have them all selected. Just make sure that you selected all of them. And then press on wire, select one of them with the wire tool, and just wire it all up to the rod of the car rotator. So now if I actually try to move the cube, everything should move with it, including the collisions, and there we go. Okay, so I was just about to test the car, but I just remembered that we actually needed seats. So let's just go ahead and do that real quick. In your palette, search up seats, and just grab, oh, spelled it wrong. Seat, there we go. Grab it. You can turn off snapping, so you can place it better, and just basically place it in the driver's seat. It doesn't matter where you place it really. Just make sure that it's in the correct position, and when you actually sit down on it, the driver can actually see the wheel, because sometimes the driver just can't see the wheel and that the head just goes straight into the car. But yeah, when you spawn it in, just make sure that it's also wired to the animation gizmo. So just wire the seat to the tip of the animation gizmo, and really just start positioning it. So with this car specifically, oh wait, yeah, don't forget to press edit on the animation gizmo when trying to move this. But yeah, with this car specifically, the seat tends to be very low, like around down there. So when I actually sit down, yeah, my head is actually still up. Oh, actually, never mind. I think we're good. Yeah, we're fine. I just need to move it forward a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and select it once again. Move it forward, sit down, and there we go. Everything's perfect. And if you guys are using this specific car model, I'd recommend you removing these two tubes at the front. They tend to get in the way of drifting when you're, actually drifting. All right, so another quick test before we actually make this physical. So if we move the car, everything moves with it. Yep, even the seat. Great. And if I try sitting on the seat, yeah, I'm positioned correctly and everything's working. Okay, perfect. Okay, so up until now, you should have everything done. The collisions, the car rotator wired up correctly, the cube that pretends to be the car. Make sure that you add the tag, the trigger handle, the two rotators on the wheel, the animation gizmo, and the seat. Just make sure that you have all of these. I basically just summarized everything that I've done in this tutorial. If you need any help, the comment section is always open, and I'll be responding to the comment section more than usual. So keeping an eye on. I'll be keeping an eye out on that. Okay, now before we make this physical and start wiring everything up, what we need to do is we have this wheel angle right here that we can use. Just go ahead and wire this wheel angle to the speed of the car rotator. So just go ahead and do that real quick. Then once you've done that, let's go back to the update 30 Hz event receiver that we unwired earlier and just wire it back. So now if I sit in the car and I try to rotate, you can see that it rotates accordingly. So basically if I move the trigger handle a bit to the left, it moves slowly. 90 degrees to the left, moves fast, and so on. You can also change the turn speed in the circuit board, so let me just demonstrate that. So right now it's on 0.15. If I'm just going to make that 0.5, you're going to see a difference. You're going to see a big difference. Yeah, you can clearly tell that it's faster than usual. But yeah, I recommend the default settings. They're just good for me, in my opinion, but you can always change them if you want to. Okay, so let's actually make the car move now. So what we need to do is configure the cube that you spawned in the first step of the tutorial. Configure that one, and go to the very bottom. Make sure that you have can modify with circuits on. Just make sure that that's on. If it's not on, that means when the car tips over and it's upside down, it's not gonna reposition itself, and you're gonna have to keep on pushing it around and flipping it over. If you like that, then just, keep it off. But if you want it to reposition itself, just turn it on. But yeah, the next step is just go ahead and change it from environment to physical. And just like that, everything should be working. So you can see that I can push it, oh, there we go. Yeah, it's really doing something. So you can see that when I stand on it and I push it, I move with the car. So this is also optional, but I recommend you do it anyways. Just configure the bottom collider that's touching the ground, and make sure that block players is disabled, so that when I stand on it and actually push it, it doesn't push me with it. But I'm getting blocked by the front and stuff like that. But yeah, you can see that everything works. So now when I sit in the car, let's just give this a quick test. I could turn around, I could do everything, and let's start drifting. There we go. I'm just grabbing the trigger button. It lags out sometimes depending on your frames per second, but because I'm using the streamer cam, it lags out a bit. But yeah, I mean, there you go. You can go ahead and do a drift, back to the left. There you go. This looks amazing. Okay, here is a top view of the car. Also, by the way, I forgot to mention something. We forgot to add the spotlights in the correct spots because, well, you know, I forget sometimes. But yeah, you can add those. Also, it's optional. Just make sure that you wire them to the car rotator as usual. But yeah, let me just show you how this thing works. Okay, let's give this a test. So as you can see, I'm just going for the drifts. Maybe I'm off camera, I'm not sure. But yeah, you can see that I'm really going for it right now. This would be so cool to... Oh, now I'm off the camera, yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty fast. But you get what it's like. You know, it's very fun to mess around with. You can really do some cool stunts. What I like to do is I like to like make ramps, go up those ramps and do some 360s in the air. It's very cool. But let me just show you how it works when tipping over. So let's say that you're drifting and all of a sudden you go upside down. Just like that. You can see that it instantly repositions itself like it's supposed to. So don't ever worry about it tipping over if you have the can modifier with circuits. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that tutorial. It was really fun to make. I am pretty new to all of this car stuff, so if you guys have any recommendations or stuff that I can improve on, just hit the comments. I'm always listening. But yeah, other than that, if you liked it, like the video, dislike it, I don't really mind. But yeah, I'd really appreciate some support. And thank you for watching. See you guys in the next tutorial.